What was the question that he posed to you? Because you mentioned something about $6,000. What you would do with it?
Oh, we were talking. He brought up the idea that he has a buddy who like does a lot of investing and does a lot of different sorts of things in the stock market, involved with that and such. And he was talking about taking a loan to do investments, and that doesn't necessarily make sense in what you would be doing in that. So what I mean by that is, when you're looking to, you don't want to take out a loan, especially a high interest rate loan, to do investing, because it doesn't make sense in that particular means, especially when you have a small amount of money, such as $6,000. What ends up happening is the opportunity cost, which is basically the cost of which it costs to borrow money, which is the interest rate. It's too big. Like, he was looking at like a 28% like APR. That's a lot of money. Especially considering most of those loans are very short-term loans. They're like generally 2 to 4 years, 24 to 48 months. And so it doesn't make sense because the chances of you gaining on that capital, even if you know what you're doing, you would have to generally be day trading to be continuously making money. And not only could that be very volatile, but it's just not worth. You would end up paying almost $1,500 in interest.
Damn, just from a $6,000 loan?
Correct. Over the time
I don't
period.
believe in day trading personally, like, because I follow Warren Buffett a lot. And, his strategy is like, when you buying stocks, you buying a piece of America. And that's kind of got to be the mindset behind it.
It's more of a long-term aspect.
Yeah, exactly.
When he invests for a long-term. And it's obviously easier for him as well because he has so much money and so much capital that when you're able to invest on that large of a scale, it's just simply easier, right? Like I was telling him, right? Investing $6,000 is great, and sure, that's great for your future. But when you invest that kind of money, you have to think more long term as opposed to short term, because it's like a grind. I compared it to like we were talking about with poker, in that day trading is a lot like that, in that you're not looking to make the big come up. You're not looking to hit the jackpot. What you're doing is you're making small marginal gains over time repeatedly without trying to lose.
Exactly.
And so it can be very stressful because it can be high variance. It can be very volatile. So it's just about how much you know about that knowledge in markets, because I don't know a ton about day trading. But I have friends who do it. But they have large sums of money. And they've been doing it for a really long time. They have had people who have basically mentored them to where they got to today. And it's just so scary. It's terrifying to put, like, $6,000 isn't a lot of money, right? It is, but it isn't.
Right.
It's not like, if I lost $6,000 right now, I'd be fucking sad. I would not be stoked. I would not be a happy camper. But it wouldn't be like, all right, baby, the ship's gone. I got to jump off the roof. It's not that bad. It's not the end of the world, right? It sucks, but we'll make it.
Right.
But it's still a large sum of money. So you don't want to lose that, especially when you, like, we're not big time here. We're not like out here, Warren Buffett status. But what we're trying to do, as I'm sure all of us are, is we're all young men and women, we're trying to build towards our future, because obviously we see those people who have done it over time. Obviously we live in a completely different age, right? Warren Buffett had an advantage of where, like, not a lot of people went to college back then. Not a lot of people. We live in a much more competitive marketplace, especially even just in the job, even in the workplace. But you think about it now, everybody has a degree almost. Like, every other person you run into has a degree. And
everybody.
It's like, dude, it's hard to compete.
Do you yourself have a degree?
Yes, I have a bachelor's in economics from Wayne State.
Okay.
So, but like, even that's like hardly nothing. Now you got to have your master's. Now you got to have a PhD just to people like really, really take you seriously, or you got to just be in front of the right people.
What do you think the future of, like, 9 to 5s is? Because we talked about the fact that, automation is just going to, like, take everything over. Like,
so yeah.
What do you like?
The future.
What's next?
The future of work is the scariest thing ever. Okay, so you can draw parallels to a lot of weird moments in history, a la like the Renaissance era in Europe, right? We've seen a lot of art and a lot of different sorts of, which that was automation, but it was a different kind of automation. It was slavery. So when you see those in the Roman times, and obviously in America, when you see those moments of where people just have lots of free time and lots of good things actually come out of that, albeit terrifying things, right? Because when you have so much automation, when you have so many things like that, people don't have a lot of free time, or people have way too much free time. Sorry. So they have tons of time to work on different things. It's just not work. In economics, they call that creative destruction, right?
Okay.
If we have automation taking almost all of our jobs, what will happen to America? Will we create new jobs?
Right.
Will we create new avenues of work for people? Will we have different avenues like we also talked about with the The basic income.
Oh, BMI, yeah.
Yeah, the BMI.
Was it like BUI or something like that?
Yeah, something
Basic universal income?
Yeah, exactly. Basic universal income, where you just pay people a standard rate just for being alive. Which I agree with. I mean, eventually we will probably see those levels. What, you never know, right? Because people thought the car would be the end-all be-all, right? They thought it would automate too much and that we wouldn't have horses no more and all that thing. But we always found something new, right? People thought the same exact thing with the computers. We always found new jobs. It's just a matter of what we're going to find once manual labor jobs are deleted.
Yeah.
Once that gets rooted out by automation, what will we then do to people who just simply aren't that skilled or just don't have, which this isn't no like slight towards these people, but there are obviously people who are just skilled at manual labor, who are skilled at hard working jobs, but eventually a lot of those jobs will just go by the wayside because a robot will do it or some sort of automation will take most of it. And that's not even to say just like what we do won't be automated one day. It's about really how we're going to segue those people, the uneducated, the people who are less talented, the people who have less skills, the people who just have the less fortunate. What are we going to do to make sure that it's a moral quandary? What are we going to make sure to do that those people don't get left behind? Obviously, there will be some sorts of retraining, but obviously, some people just don't got it in them. So that's why, like, a lot of times when you see, like, especially with factory work in America, right? You see a lot of people who are just, a lot of older dudes who are just like, no, this just isn't, like, I can't find anything to do because they can't find jobs that will pay them what they were used to while doing something that's worthwhile. And it's very different.
The auto crisis in India? Like tens of thousands of workers being laid off at those auto plants?
It makes sense. I mean, that's kind of what happens, right? And so those crises will eventually happen in a lot of different fields, especially in America, right? Because the second it's a cost-benefit analysis that it's worth for, let's just take Chrysler, for example. The second we have the technology, which we are pretty close to do, where they can automate almost every system they have, and to where the technology is cheap enough and it costs less over time. There's like a calculation in economics, but I don't remember. But once it's costly enough to where you can do that and just replace people with it, and so that way you can do that, they're going to do it. It's just a simple fact of the second they can, the second it's costly, it's going to happen, right? We've seen it in a different manner of shipping jobs overseas to Mexico or shipping them to China. It was cost effective enough to do that, even though they had to uproot thousands or millions of dollars worth of capital, buildings, etc. It was worth it because they can make those cars and vehicles so much cheaper, albeit at the cost of American jobs and at the cost of the American economy. But businesses don't look at that. That's sort of why we have the modern era of like millennials being so against capitalism in its current form, because the millennials are being left behind.
Pretty much.
For a lot of millennials, it's just simply are. A lot of us have education. A lot of us work really hard, but we don't have the same we don't have the same opportunities that our like fathers or grandfathers had. Whereas my dad could get a job at Ford, coming straight out of high school, or even dropping out and making enough money to buy a house. If he wanted to buy multiple cars, he could, and they had that opportunity, right? We get out of college and it's hard for us to find a job over $15 an hour. It's difficult. It's just, especially going back to also the competitiveness of the job market. I know I segued a little, but I think what we will see in the future of the 9 to 5 is hopefully we will see some positive creative destruction. We will see.
I think it is positive.
We will see. We will see over the long run. We will find new things for people to do. And also we'll see more art. We'll see more music. We'll see more. Hopefully philosophy, things of that nature, more political discourse in a positive manner than ever. Hopefully.
I think so. And because like what I read about 2030, 70 million U.S. jobs will be automated. This is why I feel like personal branding is just like so much more important now, because in 10 years, that's the only thing that's going to give you leverage when you're looking for a job. Like if I can look you up and like your brand is well represented online.
It's social capital.
Exactly. So
they do that in China now. It's kind of scary, actually.
Really?
Yeah, there's like there's social media-esque websites in which people can rate you. Like, do they think you're like a good person?
Right.
But that's a slippery slope. That can be scary. With that comes very negative connotations.
Like a personal feedback system.
But it's also, just think about how much that can be used for a negative aspect. Think about how much just because of the color of your skin or just because you're a woman, that maybe your social capital isn't worth it. We see it nowadays, right? It's just directed in a different manner. It's not necessarily a hard quantifiable. It's just old white dudes being racist and not wanting to hire black guys.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, you see that statistically, right? So there was a cool thing in, if you've ever read the book Freakonomics, it's like a wacky book about like crazy economic theories and stuff. But they did a statistical analysis of dudes with ethnic sounding names. And so they literally took white ass names and they took ethnic names and they compared job applications with nothing different other than their names. And the names with ethnic sounding names got called back like 50% less.
Wow.
Strictly just based on the name, right? So if you had Eddie versus like, I can't think of a fucking name off the top of my head, but like just anything, right? Like let's even just say
Bubagua.
Anything, bro. Anything that just doesn't sound like John or
like
Terry,
one syllable,
you
right?
know, like just a normal ass name. Like it was viewed way less distinctively. And so you can see those things. And that's where those social capital concepts are very scary, is that people shouldn't be judged necessarily on certain things. Like obviously it can get a slippery slope and people can just view you simply just based on those facts. It already happens now, but it could, you never know, man. It could be one of those things that's positive because it's more out in the open. And it's more transparent.
More transparent.
But it's still scary.
Yeah, it is.
One person could not like you for like you having a bad day.
Yeah, you're
fucked, which is a terrible thing.
And they could just rate you negative, like,
this guy's a piece of shit because he got angry because cut him off. It's like, but people do that all the time, right? People, like, I've had people tell me they literally thought I was an asshole for just like goofy things I said, like literal jokes that weren't even like casual. I'd just be like, hey, I just say something like coy or like off the cuff, just being like, hey, nice shoes or something, like just as a joke, even though it was like a friend's friend, right? They were like, I hated you for years because of stuff like that. I'm like, bro, I'm just a troll. Like I'm a jokester. Like obviously I meant nothing ill will, but sometimes you joke around a little bit
for sure,
and that could fuck you.
Yeah,
it's just terrifying.
And so, like, I was more so meaning too in the aspect of, let's say I'm a guy like, because I teach Forex as well. So right now I'm in the middle of like building a community around what I teach, and so X amount of followers usually equals leverage. So once I built this community and I'm at like, let's just speak hypothetically, 100,000 followers, right? Yeah. And I come into your establishment because I'm looking for a job. I just, maybe I just want to be a customer service rep at this point. But I tell you, hey, I deal with, customers all the time. I deal with people all the time. As a matter of fact, you can check my Instagram where I have over 100 million people in my community, or and this is just real hypothetical, but I think that gives you leverage, 100%. Like I said, moving forward.
It shows that you can do something effectively and build a brand and build a market, you can make yourself marketable, whether that be yourself brand or something else. That's very valuable to businesses, especially nowadays. Like, just think about like how much like businesses and politicians as well. Yeah, they're fucking stupid when it comes to engaging people on social media and the public, right? Because most of them are older. Let's just get it out in the water. Right? Let's just look at shit like Joe Biden is doing right now. Joe Biden is literally shooting himself in the foot left, right, and center at any opportunity he gets because he's saying things that you could say like maybe like 20 years ago that would make sense, but nowadays you're like, fuck, you can't say that.
What do you say? Poor kids are equal to like?
Or no, he said like, hopefully poor kids have the same opportunities as white kids, and you're like, bro, we know what you mean by that. That's not like you fucked up, dude. Or like Kamala Harris posted a tweet. I'm not very familiar with Islam, so she posted like one of the sayings for people for Islam, and then right afterwards she posted a picture. Yeah, and I got my pork chop from this restaurant. It's like, you got to be smarter than that. You have to be smarter. In the age of it's 2019. You have to be like I said. I don't know a lot about Islam, and I don't know a lot about Muslim culture, but there's a few things I know, right? There's a few commonalities that you gotta kind of dodge. And it's one of those things. It's like, especially in social media, and especially how we engage, especially clientele and people, you have to be smarter than that. I mean, even Quicken Loans is guilty of it. They had that fuck up with the Detroit poster where there was like no black people in it, and they were just like, people were in an uproar because it's like, you realize like, the demographics of Detroit include black people, right?
You got to be mindful of these things.
You have to be very aware of these things. Like, every company needs to pay attention to both your relations, and especially how you handle yourself on social media. More than ever.
Absolutely.
And those are valuable substacks that millennials are very understanding of and in control of. We have a different, because we grew up in that.
We grew up in it, exactly.
We grew up
Our
on
parents
the internet.
didn't have that.
My dad doesn't know how to fucking use Facebook.
Exactly.
My dad doesn't know how to use Twitter. My dad doesn't know what Instagram is.
Exactly.
But
So this stuff is so brand new, bro. This is so brand new.
It's so valuable.
Like the fact that the internet is in our pocket now, that shit is unheard of.
Well, the fact that you just have a machine that can do almost anything in your pocket.
This should be $1 billion, bro.
Yeah, we talked about that. It's absolutely insane.
Absolutely underpriced.
For sure.
Like, and then I think about tech giants and just Silicon Valley being the capital of technology. Like, we don't really get to control how it like shapes our lives in a way, but we have to understand that evolution is moving in a direction. You either adapt or you fold.
Technology is more important than ever. And this is one thing, like, when I have kids, there's two things I'm going to teach my children how to do. I'm going to teach them other languages, that including like basic coding languages, Java, Python, things of that nature.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach them how to play music, because I think those two things open a lot of doors. Music, for just the simple idea that music teaches you a lot of things about just how you can operate as a human being, whether that be mathematically, physically, or spiritually. Because playing music is a very technical science. You are very constrained by a certain amount of chords on a certain amount of timing to make something sound effective.
Yes.
Which is both mathematical, logical, but also spiritual. In that you can play the most consistent, proper 4/4 timing on the drums, right? And then you can have the perfect, notes on your guitar, piano, et cetera, et cetera. But there's something else in it that you just can't define. It has both logic and it has both soul.
Yeah.
Those things I think are so important for your learning process and truly understanding how things work, right? That's sort of what's missing from not our generation, but like the generation post us slightly.
Yeah.
Because everything's it's too technology based.
I didn't even consider that.
Because you think about it, right? Like, kids don't even like I'm picking up my phone right now, but and we're having a conversation, and I'm sitting here texting, right? I'm checking my Twitter right now. This is what kids do. And sure, we're engaged, and sure, we're talking to an extent, right?
Yeah.
But they're not truly engaged. You're not truly paying attention to that. You miss out on that. You miss out on the people aspect, the social aspect. The realism. That's the scariest thing about it.
It is. And that's why I always bring up Gary Vee, because he mentioned actually the same topic. He was like, you guys don't think millennials are that social. He was like, they're actually more social than ever.
Oh, they are.
He was like, do y'all remember when it was 4:30 p.m. on a Tuesday? What y'all used to do? Y'all went outside and y'all fucking swung from a tree on a tire. Now these kids are interacting with the world from their bedrooms, you know what I mean? And they didn't have that opportunity.
But with that comes a downfall.
Okay.
There's two sides of that technology, right? It's a balance. What we need to figure out is how we can get kids, and this isn't to be like some like old head, like just being like, you damn kids back in my day. What it is just that those sorts of social anxieties and those problems will eventually bite them in the long run, right? It'll be difficult for them when they have to go to job interviews. It won't be difficult. It'll be more difficult. But that isn't something that's necessarily a bad thing, obviously. Everything comes with a price, right?
Everything has
an opportunity cost.
For sure.
We always say
Absolutely.
that. It's interesting. I'm looking forward to see how that shit's going to turn out. Like, kids are going to be doing Fortnite dances and job interviews. It's going to be lit, bro. I can't wait. I'm going to be like interviewing a kid. He's going to be like, yeah, and I can do this Fortnite dance and this Fortnite dance.
Man.
Bro, that's
exactly. So, like,
whatever.
I'm curious to see how it evolves, because if it's one thing I know, our country itself was built on capitalism. And I know you probably seen The Man Who Built America, right?
No.
It's a very good series, but it talks about guys like Carnegie, Vanderbilt, Rockefeller, and
big dogs.
Those guys was
rich
like,
motherfuckers.
Man, business was really cutthroat in their time.
It still is.
All of that competing that they was doing, like, they didn't. I don't know if they knew that they was creating, but they were really creating industry here in America. Jobs and shit was really unheard of, for real. Like, until they
that level, right?
At that level,
especially with the Industrial Revolution and how. I mean, the Industrial Revolution is the automation of our era, right? The steam engine and things of that nature were the computers of their era.
Exactly.
They were truly impactful.
And didn't even know it. They were too busy competing.
They were too busy building gnarly shit, bro.
Yes.
They were too busy changing the world for better or worse.
Right.
On how we view it. I mean, who's to say, really?
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, when we talk, that's the interesting thing. We go back on how millennials and capitalism, how there's just like this huge hatred for capitalism. And I sort of touched on this with you the other day when we were talking, and that capitalism it's mildly flawed, but every economic system is flawed. Yeah. When we look at economics as a whole, it's a lot of fucking theory. It's a lot of like, I think more often than not, this is what happens. But there's obviously occurrences in which you just can't explain things. There's too many moving parts in an economy for you to be able to properly predict everything.
Right.
There's certain things that we hold pretty true involved in there, but a lot of things can just be gnarly and crazy and wacky. So it's very difficult. We have a lot of talks about socialism. We have a lot of talks about capitalism, their effectivenesses, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of people have a problem with socialism just because people hate people getting free shit.
Yeah,
that's why people will get so salty at universal basic income. They're just scared that someone isn't working for that money. They're not,
taking advantage of.
They have this shitty like super Protestant work ethic that like, yeah, I never take breaks and I never take a drink of water while I'm on the floor. It's like, no, dude. Like, at the end of the day, capitalism is all about who can get rich off of who. It's a very simple game, right? We work at Quicken Loans. Dan Gilbert is making money off of every single one of us. Right. It's just a simple fact of the matter. He had the business venture, he had the ideas, and he had the capital to do so.
Right.
He's built that over time. So therefore, we are essentially his minions. We do his bidding for a wage, and he obviously makes more than what we make an hour off of us.
Right.
That's why whenever I tell somebody, when you're making money, you deserve more no matter what you think, because there's no way you're not producing more than what they're paying you. You just simply would not have a job if that's the case.
For sure.
Just wouldn't work.
For sure.
Now, when we get into the socialism aspect, people are always like, we should be in a socialistic country. We should move towards more of that. And whereas I agree, we should have some more socialistic tendencies, right? We see countries like Norway and all those Nordic countries, Sweden and things of that nature. They pay a lot of money for taxes. They pay a lot of money in taxes so that they have a lot of benefits. None of these will ever work perfectly, right? We will never have a capitalistic society, a socialistic society, a communistic society fully complete in their forms that will work properly. Because at the end of the day, humans are fucked. At the end of the day, people are selfish. And not necessarily for the wrong reasons, right? You yourself are programmed as a human and an instinct to survive. That is just instinct over time.
Number one. Exactly.
We are literally animals, and we are programmed to do that. So, unless we learn...
Stephen Hawkins wrote about it.
Unless we learn to change the fact that we are the center of the universe, you yourself are the entire entity of your existence, then none of those systems will ever work. Because everybody will always want more than somebody else. Everybody will always be selfish to a certain extent. Because we're programmed to survive. Because now we don't have to go hunting. We don't have to go out there and kill a boar to survive for the next week for us and our tribe.
Exactly.
We simply have to just make money.
Right.
That's our form of hunting.
Right.
And sure, we want to do that more than the other people so that we will survive, so that our bloodline will survive.
Right.
That's why those systems are flawed. To an extent, there are obviously problems with capitalism in that it is generally exploitative, but almost any system is over the long term because corruption breeds exploitation. For sure. But capitalism is the worst proponent of it. That's why capitalists or democratic socialism country or socially democratic countries tend to be more successful because it combines a lot of both aspects and allows people to have the freedom of helping out those who are less fortunate, things of that nature. And those are the happiest fucking people on earth. People in Sweden are the happiest fucking people on earth.
Making less, right?
They get 50% of their taxes taken away from them.
Right.
That's a lot of fucking money.
That is.
If you told any American, we're going to take 50% of your taxes,
they would lose it.
Salty as shit. But it's not that crazy. It's 17% more than what you pay now, pretty much. Like the average American probably pays around 30% in taxes, right? After the Trump tax plan is probably like 28, but it's in that range, right? But think about how fucked roads are in Michigan. Think about like how much our car insurance is.
Right.
Think about all these different things that suck.
Yes.
If we could fix those things, I'd pay 50% in taxes.
I'm one of those weird people, bro. Like, I'm okay with taxes. Now, I don't control the amount of it, but like, because I read a book by Ben Franklin, right? And he said, if if the taxes imposed on us by the government was the only taxes that we had to pay as human beings, then we might be well off. But he said you tax twice by your own idleness. So when you're sitting up at the crib being lazy, not doing shit with your life, that's a tax. Now I don't know what degree that taxes you to. Maybe on a spiritual plane you're being taxed. For sure, no, but that's a tax.
It goes back to the phrase, the opportunity cost. Your opportunity cost of you sitting around and smoking weed all day and not doing shit is that you're just not making money.
Yes.
That you're getting taxed. You're just not having the ability to do those things.
And he said you're taxed 3 times as much by your own foolishness. So like not even having an open mind, wanting to learn new things or expand your knowledge, grow a new skill set for the coming economy, that's a tax as well.
For sure.
So it's like the government taxes is not the worst thing in the world. I know I'm not the one out there building the roads. I didn't put that damn pavement on the ground. I didn't put that street there. I didn't put the light there. I didn't organize none of that.
The only scary thing about that is, as much as I'd love to pay 50% in taxes and have all my shit fixed, is that unfortunately that's just not the case in America, because our government is very corrupt. Like as we see in America, our democratic system is terrifying right now. It's scarier than ever. Maybe it always was scary. Maybe we weren't just so privy to it. Maybe it wasn't so transparent. Maybe we just didn't have as much information on just the sketchiness that happens. But that's also, back then we didn't have so many lobbyists.
We didn't have social media to be able to see all of it right in front of us either.
It's true. But we also didn't have the ability for giant companies to just pay politicians a bunch of money to pass laws. They didn't have that access before. They didn't have that abilities. And if they did, it might have been like under the table, and it might have been more
did you know that Carnegie, Rockefeller, and J.P. Morgan came together and bought a president?
I believe it. It's crazy.
William McKinley. They bought William McKinley because Teddy Roosevelt wanted to make monopolies illegal. So they're like, fuck that. We got to get our own president in office. And they paid this man, but he got assassinated. And guess who the vice president was? Teddy Roosevelt. And he put the laws in place. So they was buying presidents back then, and it was always corrupt. But
absolutely. It's just a level of now it's more open, right?
Right now,
get
exactly.
To see, sure, some of it's conspiratory, but obviously there's more information than ever. There's more understanding of just how it's more out in the open because it's allowed to, which is kind of terrifying. But it goes, I mean, just think about how like scary 2008 was and the whole global economic crash.
Yeah.
It was literally just due to dudes just running rampant. It was just literally people in high positions in stock or in banking just selling bad loans.
Yeah.
But
junk loans, right?
It was trickled down. Or like it was going through every facet, right? It was going through every small lender and even big lenders, but it was going through all lenders.
Yeah.
Just giving out loans because there was no regulation on it. You can just give out a loan to anybody, bro.
Exactly.
You don't give a fuck if someone can pay this back. And then, let's bundle all these loans together. We know they're fucked. Well, let's get someone to rate them really well, right? Well, let's get someone to say, these are great assets. You're going to make tons of money over time on this. Just buy them, right? The American financial system literally bankrupted a country. We bankrupted, I think it was Greenland. It was Greenland or Iceland. I get both those countries confused because they're both like weird islands. But we bankrupted a country because we sold them bad loans that were like supposedly great investment properties. How jacked is that? That's so crazy. And the fact that like so little happened because of it, it was almost inconsequential to the global economy over time. Like, sure, it was a big deal and a big event and a lot of people lost a ton of money, but like nothing happened, right? Like if this was like the 1400s, those people were getting their heads lopped off in the streets. Most of those people got bonuses and shit. People worked at like J.P. Morgan and Chase. People worked at like Bank of America and all those other Bears and Stearns and things like that. Those dudes got bonuses. Like that is insane. That is just corruption is the biggest problem in America. Capitalism, sure, it's got its inherent fuckness. America has its inherent fuckness as well, just due to like years of we had slavery, we had colonialism, we have all these different problems in America's past and history. And capitalism has been a big proponent of all those. So it's naturally exploitative. But the biggest problem is the corruption. I mean, I shouldn't say that, actually. I'm not sure. But corruption is one of the biggest deals because those things continue because of corruption. Those things are allowed to happen. People who have money and control are allowed to continue those negative processes because of corruption.
For sure. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm one of those guys. I always see the glass half full. I just kind of got an optimistic view about it because I just love to compare now with then. And if we go back 100 years ago, shit was more fucked up for real. Like on a social level, like just being black walking down the street was a problem 100 years ago.
For sure.
And you couldn't go in the same bathrooms and things, you know.
Absolutely.
So, and then 100 years before that, even worse. Mm-hmm. So it's like life progresses and, you know, evolution evolves things, but like it's not when we want it to be exactly. But it has a general direction that it's headed. If you kind of look at it, you know,
it's fair to look at it optimistically, because if you go through your life thinking everything's half empty, you're going to be fucked in the long run. You're just going to be like mentally jacked. But there's also something to be said for that. Optimism is good, but settling is not. And the status quo isn't something we should be used to. Mm-hmm. We should not ever settle for those ideas that, hey, it's better, so we should be happy. No, we shouldn't. Okay. We should never be happy, because there's always, I shouldn't say that. We should never be happy. We should never be happy with the way things are, because we can always strive for better. Mm-hmm. We can always improve. Things can always get better, especially on the social justice tip.
Yeah.
Especially on that aspect. Like, sure, you guys aren't slaves anymore. But,
right.
But that doesn't mean you guys don't face injustices on a daily basis.
Exactly.
That doesn't mean, like we said earlier with the ethnic names, that doesn't mean that that's okay.
And the fact that African Americans have the highest incarceration rates on the planet.
Bro, that's a whole nother podcast in and of itself. Man. Like, just even thinking about that.
Right.
When people don't even, it still blows my mind that we can still have conversations, and you can still have conversations with even just people in your office that you wouldn't think that they would have those like negative views, but they'd still be like, why is he kneeling for the national anthem? He should stand. It's like, dog, that's his right as an American.
Exactly. Like, you forget.
Like, if you are in the armed forces and you don't support that man, what did you really fight for? Mm-hmm. You didn't fight for the Constitution. You didn't fight for those things, because the Constitution grants him the right to do that. The Constitution gives him the ability to stand up for what he believes in.
That's right.
And it's not like he's doing it in a negative manner. It's not like he's bucking down cops in Philadelphia like that one dude.
Exactly.
What he's doing is he's doing it in a very, very quiet, very mild manner. He's doing it in an important manner. Those kinds of things are necessary. Mm-hmm. There has to be people who will stand up. Mm-hmm. It blows my mind that someone can... Colin Kaepernick was a very important person. He's a very rich man. He made a lot of money.
Yeah.
He stood to lose a lot.
Yeah.
He obviously lost a lot.
For sure.
Those kinds of things are important. Mm-hmm. Even though people just think it's just like he's just a football player. Mm-hmm. Those kinds of things are important. But to go back to what I was saying a little earlier, I'm mind blown on a daily basis at how much I run into just people being salty at things like that.
Yeah.
For people standing up for what they believe in because they don't understand it.
Yeah.
You just simply don't understand the social justice aspect. That's why it's never okay to be satisfied.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, sure, we're not where we were. Mm-hmm. And sure, maybe like, I grew up poor and stuff, but like, I didn't go through the Great Depression, so I should be happy. No, I shouldn't. I shouldn't be happy.
Or the Black Plague. We didn't have to bear that shit.
No, that doesn't. It's okay to be. It's okay. It's not okay to be satisfied with those things. Mm-hmm. I think that's the biggest thing I think millennials can take going forward, is that there's still a lot of work to be done, man. We can always get better. The status quo is the wackest shit ever, because it just is. It is, and that's maybe that's why I'm so crazy, but I just hate the fact that...
It's what you believe.
Yeah, I don't believe in ever settling. I don't. Okay. I just don't.
And not to cut you off, but this reminds me of actually a tweet I put out the other day. I said that life is like a horizon, right? What happens when you get to the horizon? It's just more horizon.
Jump off that bitch. Well, we live in a flat earth.
Right? Exactly. So it's like, go ahead and try. Go ahead, look for the edge. I want you to find the edge. Go right for it.
Go try. You're gonna be walking around this bitch a long time. It's gonna be a while.
So when you say like like never settle, it just kind of reminds me like, dude, because it's a horizon anyways. We're never gonna. The fact that you have a life, it's over. You're always gonna be striving for more life.
Exactly. People always tell you like you should be happy that you're not like in like some place that sucks. You should be happy, you're in America where you have those. It's like, yeah, I am happy. I'm stoked. Dude.
I'm grateful.
I love the fact that like shit is lit. Like I love the fact that I can come to work every day and I can make a decent money and I don't have to like worry about dying from, from starving, right?
Type shit, right?
Well, what I'm not happy with though is the fact that there are people out there starving.
Yeah.
And there are people out there who are just having injustices against them. That doesn't mean, obviously, I'm going to, like, do a hunger strike. That's not me, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody contributes in their own manner. But I think it's important to make sure that we don't look down upon people for fighting for the right things, mm-hmm. especially in that aspect. Because you see it all the time. You see people getting butthurt, especially around things that involve, like, police and things that involve, military, things that involve the flag, things that involve, the national anthem, mm-hmm. those sorts of things. Those things are very touchy for a certain group of people.
People get real sensitive about that type of stuff.
Very not happy about that. That's the only way I can put it.
Yeah.
However, there's obviously a line to everything, right? Mm-hmm. We obviously know there's certain things you can't do and say. But at the end of the day, you have to take risks and you have to stand up boldly sometimes, mm-hmm. right? You have to stand up boldly to make changes.
For sure.
You're never gonna accomplish anything unless you take a risk. We
sure.
talked about that, me and the buddy with the loan thing. You're never gonna accomplish anything when you're taking risks. Mm-hmm. So I think it's great that we see people doing like that, but it still blows my mind that we still see so much backlash over things like that when clearly what he's doing is fighting for something that's important. It's not like he's fighting for something ignorant. He's fighting for people not getting killed by police officers.
Exactly.
It's as simple as that.
Really simple.
It's super simple. It's super simple. When it's, and how can you not look at a statistic that's disproportionately to one sect of people, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's pretty blatantly obvious, just like the thing you said with African Americans being incarcerated at a much higher rate. Yeah. It's like, how can you deny that? People still find a way to think, oh, well, white people have just as many rights as me. It's like, mm-hmm. dog, like I'm a white dude. I've been a white dude 31 years of my life. And I think it's important to realize that I obviously understand my privilege in society, right? Sure. I'm a straight white male. Right. Like, I get it, bro. Right. I hit the jackpot of social capital. Wow. Like, it's great. I don't have a lot of the problems mm-hmm. that, maybe people of different sexualities do. Maybe people of different, skin tones do. So I don't have those problems. But mm-hmm. I think what's important is that it's important to speak up when you see those things. It's mm-hmm. important to identify and understand why those people are going through, because otherwise education is just uneducation, like people are uneducated about those topics. That's how it keeps continuing, mm-hmm. right? We were talking about it the other day, me and Mario. He was saying something to the effect of, when you see a lot of people in the South who are very like racist and mm-hmm. you don't like, different sorts of people, it's because they grew up in that, right? Both mm-hmm. their families and they grew up in areas where it's all white dudes. Yeah. They don't see, it's really hard to hate somebody when they're your best friend.
Yeah, exactly.
When you grow up around different sorts of people and you get involved in different sorts of cultures, mm-hmm. it's hard to be mad at people when you have those experiences. Exactly. Like, how can you be mad at like Arabic people when like you grew up in Dearborn, mm-hmm. right? Like, you grew up in Dearborn, you grew up around them your entire life. Exactly. You experienced that culture inadvertently, indirectly, through just by being, mutually around them.
And I grew up with a gay brother.
Yeah.
Which made life so much easier for me.
Because you understand that perspective. You understand that you can never hate a gay person. Exactly. You can never hate somebody who has those feelings, because mm-hmm. you love your brother. Absolutely. That's your blood. You mm-hmm. do anything for that person. Mm-hmm. And so how could you ever feel that way? Exactly. You have that experience. Yep. I mean, sure, there are people who are pieces of shit and who are just
of course.
but it's a lot easier to understand those subjects when you're involved in that culture. Mm-hmm. That's why it also blows my mind when people are like, they get so salty about inclusion and they get so salty about, having more involvement of different cultures in the workplace and things of that nature. Yeah. Like, I overheard one of my buddies, which it's unfortunate that he's my buddy now because I hear this shit, but we got a work email. It was for like a women's conference, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, when's the men's conference? It's like, fuck, dude. Fuck, dude. Yeah, dude. Like, it's not like almost every company ever is owned by a dude. Like, almost every company is owned by a man. Like, how can you not let people have those moments? How can you not let them have?
It's just a moment, right?
It's not like they're purposely excluding you, right? It's not like, we hate men, we're going to have this conference. It's like, no, these are moments to empower these people. Exactly. To empower these women, to help them grow and help them build. Because obviously women are marginalized in our country.
Exactly.
For a myriad of reasons, but they are marginalized. Same with different sorts of sects of people. So it's important that we have those things. And even in such a like very open and inclusive environment that we work in now, people still say shit like that.
And not to cut you off, because you said earlier that you hit the jackpot, right?
Oh,
I was
sure.
watching an interview with Warren Buffett, Jay-Z, and Steve Forbes. Did you see that one?
No.
Man, they're all sitting in a restaurant having dinner, and Warren Buffett admitted, he's like, look, I got lucky. First of all, I'm white. I was born in America, and I'm not a woman. He was like, I'm absolutely lucky. I'm tremendously lucky.
Sure.
So, it's like you said, it's important to have those conversations and just bring that to the light.
It's pivotal. It's pivotal. That's why it's important that every school, especially you have to start those kids young, because when you're a child, you don't have those thoughts. Those things are programmed into you.
Right.
Racism isn't just something you're born with.
Right.
You're not just born like, I hate black people.
Yeah,
that just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That is a learned trait that you learn from people around you. And that is just something that is ingrained into you negatively. That's why it's important to have those like different sorts of inclusivities, especially in schools and especially in workplaces later on. Because otherwise you're just going to keep breeding that. You're just going to keep breeding that, like that Trumpism. That hatred, that negativity. Like, it's just not necessary. It's pretty important. Man. I know we segued from business into...
Oh, man, it's good, because I feel like, all these topics kind of go hand in hand almost. 100%. Economics, business...
everything's connected, right?
For sure, right? And I'll often talk about the fact that spirituality is important as well. Like, it's not a part of the general conversation.
For sure.
But when you bring up topics like faith, right, and what you absolutely believe in, I absolutely believe that anything that you can think is too late. It can already be done. It's just a matter of putting personal action. It's too late. It's just a matter of putting personal action behind that thought to supplement that thought and manifest what you're thinking. You know what I mean? Everything in my life, bro, or everything that we can look around and lay our eyes on was just once a thought at first, right? Because thought is the father of all creation.
Yeah.
But that's strictly spiritual. And if there's one thing I know that all businessmen had to experience, it's the adversity, it's the obstacles. You know what I mean? When the moments where you're not sure anymore, you have to have that level of faith. Robert Kiyosaki talked about it in Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a certain level of faith where it's going to work out just within your heart of hearts. And I haven't met anybody successful who didn't mention that they absolutely believe that they were going to be successful. So that's why I believe business and spirituality is so intertwined. Because you have to believe this vision is even possible for you to what I'm saying, do what you're doing.
That's something I wish I could get better. That's something as I go forward and trying to be successful in any facet of doing, I need to get better at having that personal belief. Because sometimes I feel like I have it inadvertently or subconsciously that I just react and I just do it, that I have those not powers, but I have that ability to just do something. As opposed to if I think about it, I'll just doubt, or I'll have that second guessing, or I'll think about it too much. So I think things like that are really actually impactful and important to think about.
Super impactful. Have you ever heard of Wallace Wattles?
No, but that's a cool ass name.
Wallace Wattles, man, he actually wrote a book in 1901, right? This book is called The Science of Getting Rich. And in this book, he just goes into depth that everything he mentioned in his book stems from the Hindu belief that everything is one. All is one. Everything that you see is created from one entity, right? And what he believes is that entity is thought. Thought had to it has to forego everything else. And as weird as that is to really think about it, when you get too deep into it, you can start to just kind of just look at your own life for what it is. I think actually Einstein even brought it up, when he first learned about the laws of attraction, right? What you think about, you bring about. He actually denied that at first until he started realizing it was happening in his own life. And he had to talk about it. As a matter of fact, we mentioned Carnegie earlier. Carnegie hired a writer named Napoleon Hill, if you ever heard that name. He wrote Think and Grow Rich, which is,
I've definitely seen that book.
That book is still to this day responsible for producing the most millionaires than not any other book.
I'm about to go buy that book.
Think and Grow Rich. That's the name of the book. But what's more fascinating is how the book came into existence. So Carnegie, after he got old and was done battling J.P. Morgan and sold his company, he wanted to give back. He wanted to teach the laws of success. So he hired a young writer, 20-year-old Napoleon Hill, and he said, if I take you under my wing and promise you that in 20 years you'll be wildly successful, but in that 20 years you wouldn't have no material compensation, would you do it? And he did it. He said, hell yeah. He said they spent the next 3 days together. That's 72 hours they spent together after that. But he basically funded for Napoleon Hill to be able to travel the world. He paid for him to travel the world and talk to the richest people on the planet and just get their philosophy about life. It took him 20 years to do that. When the journey was over and he concluded all this data, he realized that these people disagreed on many different topics, thousands of topics they disagreed on. But he said there was one thing that they all unanimously agreed on, and that one thing is what you think about, you bring about. Nobody could deny that. So there's something here. There's some type of evidence here that once it's there, bro, it can be here. You know what I'm saying? It could be made manifest, basically. Sure. So yeah, man, I definitely recommend checking that book out.
That's
But yeah, so the last thing I wanted to hit on, bro, is just like just the power of just content, because, you know, like you said, you don't think you should ever be satisfied with the way things are. Could always be better. What I'm so grateful about right now, the way things are, is the fact that now that we have the internet and smartphones, I think smartphones is even the playing field for humanity, because I can put a message out and anybody in the 100%. World can find that message. There's no middleman now for my message. Yeah. And I witnessed the power of that when I put out a YouTube video back in 2017. I was just talking about Forex just for a minute. And nothing happened for 24 months after that. But 2 years later, a couple from New York found my video and hit me up and asked me if I could train them on Forex. That was just the power of putting out content 2 years ago. And just to go even deeper on how like content is powerful over time. Alan Watts, who was a philosopher back in the 1950s, he lived in California, but he was from Britain. Very, very intellectual guy, but he used to speak for a small group of people in LA back in the 50s and just talk about his topics of life and things like that. And he used to turn his tape recorder on. Now, he maybe spoke for maybe like 20, 30 people at a time, but he died in the 70s. If you type in Alan Watts' name right now on YouTube, his podcasts are getting millions and millions and millions of views. It's impacting more people than ever than from when this guy was alive. So my thing is, content is evergreen. It'll always be here, and it'll impact long after you're gone. And I think that alone is so powerful. The fact that this is live right now and somebody's going to hear this 10 years from now and maybe get some value from it, from whatever we spoke about. Sure. I think that is just amazing, dude.
For sure. As long as you're not like copying something directly, right? So obviously, if I go and try to do like, what's the biggest podcast? The Joe Rogan podcast.
Joe Rogan,
the biggest podcast.
Ooh, that guy.
So if I went and copied his basically his format, like I'm just going to be this UFC guy, smoke some weed, and do some shit. Like maybe it's successful, right? But it doesn't have that impact, right? But I think if you put an earnest effort and you are a genuine human being, and you put forth things that are interesting, thoughtful, and provocative, yes, content doesn't have an age, right? Think about how many authors, how many, like you said, Alan Watts. Think about how many people who are just genuinely brilliant human beings, but their music wasn't discovered, or their information wasn't discovered until later, and people are like, wow, this is incredible. There's a really interesting band like that called Death. They were a band called Death. They were from Detroit. They were an all-black punk band, but they were a punk rock band before punk rock was really a thing. They were playing like offshoots of rock and roll, but it was really aggressive and different and mind-blowing at the time. But they only put out like one album, and almost no one heard it. Almost no one knew, because they were just a band that played, and they just didn't really do anything. They didn't get signed, so they just went their separate ways. Later on, people are just now discovering that, wow, like the founders of a music that is largely dominated by like white dudes was literally invented by some black guys from Detroit that no one had ever heard of. And so just because it wasn't discovered until like relatively recently, and they did a documentary on it, and it's really interesting, and people are now discovering that stuff. So just because maybe there's tons of stuff out there like that, and there's tons of content. That's why it's always important to also just keep searching, keep trying to find those things, because you never know what you're going to find. You'll never know that you won't find that diamond in the rough. Content is so interesting in that way, especially on the internet, because the internet is like that, right?
Yeah.
It's so vast, and there's sheer infinite amounts of content.
Infinite.
But it's just like meeting people, right? You can just meet that person. You would never have met that person like if you went to China, right?
Right.
You go there and you happen to meet that person, and that person may be the most pivotal person in your life. That person might change your world.
Right.
Much like you may find a book that very few people have ever heard of, and it's only has 100 copies, and it's barely been published. But that book may contain just the message that you need to hear.
Exactly.
Maybe that book was only. Now, I'm not a very faith-based person. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm. That's not me.
Right.
But maybe that's just there for you. Ironically enough, that moment in time was specifically there and purposefully there so that you could discover it, and it's perfect. That's why content is so awesome, because you never know when you're going to find those things.
Yeah.
And by moments of chance, like those people wanted to be taught 4X by you.
Yeah.
Those sorts of things are important. No matter how it's, like you stated earlier, it's important to focus on creating, doing, and things of importance, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know. As long as you put forth the effort and the law of attraction to bring forth, it may not be the biggest return, right? But what did it really cost us, right?
Right.
We're sitting here, we're talking, we're bullshitting, we're having a fun time. And sure, wow, what is this going to cost me? Like an hour or two of my time.
Right.
But at the end of the day, was it really a waste?
Right.
It's not.
Exactly.
Because we're putting out content. And maybe someone hears this, maybe thinks we're geniuses.
Right.
And maybe they want to help us. Or maybe someone thinks I'm a fucking dumbass and they're going to write some comment and call me an idiot.
Right.
But you know what? At the end of the day, what matters is that something came of this, and something came of this positive.
And the intent that we did it with.
Yeah.
You know, and you also mentioned that, if you were to kind of do something similar to Joe Rogan, you wouldn't want to kind of be seen as copying. This came directly from Pablo Picasso, one of arguably the greatest artists of all time. He said that good artists borrow, but great artists steal. I say steal it because you can try your best to try to copy someone and you still won't do it like them, because you can't be them and you can never be them. You can only be yourself.
That's true.
And it's coming through your filter. Even if it's their message, it's coming through your filter.
If it's genuine.
It's genuine. There you go. It's genuine.
Because obviously, like, you could steal. You could steal, like, let's say, like, I could steal somebody's music, right? But if I sing it, it's not going to be the same. It's going to be me.
Yeah.
Albeit that's probably not the best idea.
Yeah.
But those things going forward, it's important, because at the end of the day, you still gain something from that. I think every experience at the end of the day is a positive one. It's hard to think like that sometimes, but it is.
I believe that. I believe that. And that's because it's like nothing is actually happening to you, it's happening for you. That's kind of just my mindset for things.
And at the end of the day, I don't believe in everything happens for a reason, right?
Right.
But what does happen is that you've gained something from that, whether that be some sort of knowledge, some sort of benefit from, like, building a relationship with someone. Like, for example, no one may listen to this ever. No one may, like, gain anything from this. But we have gained something today. We had a great conversation. We got to know each other better. And we're better for that. We're better people for that. We know each other now. We're better along the lines of friendship, right? That's valuable in and of itself. Those experiences are valuable in and of itself.
Exactly.
I think it's important as we go forward as human beings in the grand scheme of things in this vast universe that we try to just look at things more like that. Those things they may not pay monetarily. They may not pay in dividends per se. But what they do pay off is in experiences and in forming different bonds and things of that nature. It's a different way to look at it. This shit is blowing my mind,
I think it's more
bro.
important in the long run.
I'm thinking differently just because of this now.
Wow. It's powerful, man. And like I said, you never know. Like, it's going to be here forever, I believe. I don't know what the future holds. A meteor could hit this. And that just goes back to what makes me more grateful to be a human being, because I know that it's only around 7.8 billion of us roughly. And that's not a lot. The reason why that's not a lot is because when I go out to dinner to eat and I order chicken wings, I don't just eat one wing. I eat about 4 or 5 wings. And if my brother is with me, he's going to get 4 or 5 wings. My cousin going to get 4 or 5. So it's more than 7.8 billion chickens. It's more than 7.8 billion ants, right? We are the only species it's not really that many of us. So one meteor, goodbye. So I'm grateful because they say you have a better chance at hitting the Mega Million lottery 7 times in your lifetime than actually having a life.
Oh, for sure. Because there's like a statistical probability that this is going to be a slight segue, as most things I talk about are, but there's like a statistical probability that the air we're breathing right now can turn into gold, just due to scientific fact, right? Just due to molecules combining and things of that nature. Yeah. There's a literal chance that a small speck of gold could be created from the air we have right here.
Wow.
So, with that being said, human life in and of itself is just a crazy mathematical equation that shouldn't have realistically happened.
Never happened in the first place.
I mean, anything's kind of like that because everything is so chance-based and so random, right? Just our existence alone is insane. Because as we've seen so far, we haven't seen another intelligent life species in this universe. We haven't seen it. We might not ever. That doesn't mean it's not out there because the universe is so infinite, but just think about that in and of itself. All the planets we've seen, all the things we've observed, we've never seen intelligent life anywhere else.
Ever. And they always talk about UFOs. I feel like Neil deGrasse Tyson said.
He got some hot water for some shit he said.
Like, he did though. He was like, look, if UFOs are real, like, why they can't just land the damn thing at Times Square so we can all see it and snap it in Instagram? Why it's always in some like remote location in a farmer's backyard and shit where nobody been the last 5 years? Like,
because they were drinking too much of that moonshine and they seen some shit.
But man, I definitely appreciate your time, Lee. Man, last question here: if it was your last day on Earth, what would be your last meal?
Last meal? Shit, we were kind of talking about this earlier. Chicken wings? I can't decide from where, so I'll just say something basic like Buffalo Wild Wings. It would be specifically the Caribbean jerk. I would have chicken wings from both there and Sweetwater. Okay. But I would have the Caribbean jerk from B-Dubs and some Sweetwater boys. And then Checkers fries, bro, or Rallies, whatever you want to fucking call it. Because I could eat a trillion of those things, and that would be my last meal on Earth. If I had to choose, that would be it. If you put me on death row, that's what I'm ordering.
All right. Hey, some people say, look, I don't even know if I have an appetite if I know it's my last day.
Shit. I'm going all out if it's my last meal, I'm enjoying it.
That's what's up, my baby.